So this is part 2 of the escaping the death penalty. I did a video on Facebook Live about escaping the death penalty, and I got some controversial comments there. But it's a very real thing, and so this video it's for members only. It's in the premium membership club section of Organic Growth. So for members only. So in members only, we tend to go into a lot more detail. There's no one size fits all. So I'm going to try and address things generically, and we're going to be very informal in these videos. So I'm going to be picking up notes and scribbling on the board, but the whole idea is education, and make sure that our premium club members are educated not to make the same mistake. So what I didn't show you, well, if you haven't watched the video, please watch it. I'll link it up ahead. We spoke about how we need to escape the death penalty. When we die, the SARS comes along and says, what's your estate worth? We want our share of it. So you actually, effectively, what you do is we joke that you work to death, and then when you die, you get penalized for dying. That's actually what's happening out here. So you work out your effective tax rate. You were taxed 40% while you were alive, and now what's left, you get taxed another 20%. And I'm going to show you that if you don't do it correctly, that 20% is more like 30-40%. So it really gets quite hectic, and I've got an example to show you. So, I mean, look at this. How many times have you seen this sale in execution? It's quite dark. So I want to do some numbers. The purpose of the video today is to actually unpack some of the numbers. Okay, so I've got an example that I mentioned in the Facebook Live video of a gentleman, a real life situation. A guy came to see me this week, and he's got 14 million rands worth of properties, and they stack away in all different kinds of ownership vehicles and so on. And not one of them is enough to protect him, by the way. But it's not really about him. But let's look at the numbers. Say you have 14 million rand portfolio, and you get the first 3.5 million rand of your estate is not taxed. So what's left is 10.5 million rand that is now seen as taxable. Okay, and this gets added to all your other assets, and this is your total assets. I'm not a tax expert, so for example, if you have insurance policies and so on, how you're taxed is quite dependent on the policy. So I'm not going to go into that. But where your what's paid out to your heirs is included as your estate, it'll be part of this. Where it's specifically excluded, then it won't be included in this. So, but for the sake of this exercise, I'm talking about property really, about your property portfolio, and your cars and your vehicles and your diamonds and your gold and your Bitcoin, all of that forms part of your estate. So the estate duty is 20% for the first 30 million rand worth of estate. You tax at 25%, at 20%. Above 30 million is 25%. Okay, excluding the first 3.5, of course. So in this case, you're left with a taxable income of 10.5 million, which is, SARS will put out their hand for. They'll ask your executor for 2.1 million rand. Now, if your estate is pure property, you've probably got a life insurance policy to cover all your bonds. So at that moment, the property is all paid for, but there's no cash around. So the executor looks around and says, okay, we have no cash. So SARS gets a court order, sale and execution, and they go and sell off your properties. And they're sold as deceased estate auctions. And they're sold at bargain prices. If you want to get a bargain, go and buy a deceased estate property. Sorry about the interruption, but we'll just carry on. And this, when I see deceased estate auctions, it makes me want to cry, actually. So let's unpack this further. Say you've got, SARS says I want 2.1 million rand from you. Your executor's got to sell probably upwards of 4 million rand worth of property, because they've been sold at bargain prices. And I'm not even sure about the capital gains tax, how much capital gains tax is going to be affected in here. I'm not a tax expert, but I'm willing to bet that when these properties are sold, capital gains tax is going to be due. So there's going to be capital gains tax, and then you're still going to use that money to pay the tax. But I'm not entirely sure about that. But either way, let's assume no capital gains tax. You're going to have to sell about 4 million rands worth of properties to extract 2.1 million rand out to go and pay this tax. Which means that your portfolio is now down to 10 million. Which is roughly 30%. So the effect of all this is a 30, sometimes even 40% tax rate. And while we are busy building our portfolios, a lot of our motivation, I speak to a lot of people who come to me for coaching, a lot of the reason is they're looking for their own retirement, but just as many people saying, oh, I'm looking after my own retirement, plus I want to leave an inheritance for my children and their children. So the way you might ask the question, how do we avoid this? Okay, and to do that, you have to understand structuring. Now, what I mean by structure is properties can be owned in various ways in this country. They can be in your own name. They can be jointly with your spouse. That's called a partnership, by the way. They can be in a company. This is the PTY. You can read that. You can have them in a limited company. What's it called? A public company. Okay. So you've got the PTY Limited and just limited. And the limited public company, that's a stock exchange. So your shares and things like that probably can be owned in those as well. But that's not really where we'll be going. So you can own a property in your own name, in a company, in a CC. These are you can't get in new CCs, but if you buy a property in a CC now, it can stay in a CC. There are no new CCs being registered. You can own property in partnerships. You can own property in a family trust. And now this is the deceptive one. Even the name. There's no such thing actually as a family trust, but we call them family trusts. And you think a lot of well-meaning people go out there and they think, I must put my property in the trust to look after my family and so on. And they form a family trust to put the wealth in. But the trouble with these family trusts, okay, is they don't protect you. And I'll go into more detail now. And then of course you have the star of the show is the independent trust. And this is what we have to do. And if you've got a family trust and you think you're safe, then we call it our asset test to test your trust. And I'm actually going to read it. Well, I don't want to miss out anything. You just followed me around. In South Africa at the moment, and I got these figures from a guy who's an advocate actually, and the figures that were put out by he saw it at I think it was a law society meeting a few years back, and the speaker was saying that in South Africa 91% of trusts fail. 91% of trusts fail in their job of protecting the so-called owner of the assets from attack from creditors or SARS. Okay, so we've got an asset test to make sure that those trusts. You see, what happens is family trusts often fail, and I'll go into the reasons now. So I'm going to list 7. We've actually got 30. We've got a series of 30 questions that if you answer sort of no to more than 1 or 2 or 3 of them, your trust is going on your death. Your trust will be dissolved literally. It'll be called a sham trust or an alter ego trust. Okay, and they don't physically. I don't think they physically dissolve the trust. They just attribute that money to your estate. So first question: if you've got a trust, go and look at your trust deed and answer these questions. Is the objective of your trust clearly stated in the trust deed? There's got to be a clear objective. And has it been managed properly? In other words, have the trustees kept the objectives in mind in what they're doing? Okay, and this is all based on previous. There's lots of case law. Every time SARS takes somebody to court and there's a new ruling, it becomes case law. And then if you fail, it's just failed, and they automatically call the trust a sham trust. The next question is how are the trustees related? I'm talking about the trustees. How are they related? And if they're family, and it's about the relationship to the founder. So if I'm the founder of my family trust, and the trustees are my wife and I, and my 2 daughters, and my son-in-law, that's deemed a family trust. It's not independent. It'll be SARS will just attribute that wealth to me. Okay. And the next question, this is a funny one, is are you submitting your annual tax returns? If you're not submitting your annual tax returns, they're just going to say that this is your alter ego. You're just hiding money away, and they disqualify your trust. And then, do the trustees keep records, and how do they keep them? And the next question is, how are management decisions made? It's essential to maintain the independence of your trust, okay? And if one person, especially if it's the donor, is making all the decisions, if SARS gets hold of email correspondence, say between you and your property management company, and every single email is, "Hi Joe, can we do this? Hi Joe, we need to spend this. Hi Joe, we've sent this property, buying this property." If you are deemed to be in all the correspondence, making all the decisions, you better be careful. So if you're running a trust, be very careful to do resolutions for every single decision. And a real trick you've got to be careful of is and I made the same mistake, is it's very tempting to form a trust and then you think, oh, I've got to do resolutions, it's too much trouble. And then you go and sign one resolution where all the trustees give you, say in my case Neil, give Neil Foster authority to sign all documents and sign all bond documents and sign all leases and to make all decisions regarding property. Now that, if they sign a resolution like that, it's perfectly legal. That I can make all the decisions on behalf of the trust, I can sign all the documents, it's perfectly legal, but what it doesn't do is it doesn't protect me from tax. In fact, that very resolution will sink you, because that is proof that the trust is acting as your alter ego. Okay, so that's one thing I failed on when I formed my trust that owns some of my properties. Okay, and then resolutions, what you do is you need an independent party. So a normal trust, you've got your family members and 1 or 2 independent parties, and you've got to develop a system whereby all your resolutions are filed away. So one day when SARS comes knocking, an accountant or somebody can come out of the records and say, this is how it's been run. The whole portfolio was managed by this property. This is how we handle lease agreements. This is how we handle sales, and so forth. And we don't say much about this, but the way Organic Growth operate, we operate in tandem with Targa Realty, but we even offer the service where you literally, the trust would mandate me to go and secure properties on behalf of the trust, subject to trustee approval. And that just that mechanism is proof that you're handling it independently. And our contract states that you give me authority, and I'm completely independent, I'm not even a member of the trust, give me authority to sign leases on your behalf subject to trustee approval. Then all we need is in your language between yourself and us, is we say, here's a lease, do the trustees approve it, or do you approve it? If you come back with an email saying, I've spoken to the trustees and they approve it, bang. Just that sort of language. You've got to watch your language. So I'm talking through years of correspondence, because you've got to recognize that as soon as you put money, value in an independent trust, you're a trustee managing that wealth independently. It's supposed to carry on functioning as normal if you're not there. Okay, so something you must actually understand if you've got a trust is understanding the conduit principle. I'm not going to go into today, but that's a vital part of taxation. And then the question that we all fail on is, are you compliant with the fiduciary requirements of the trust? And by that I mean, if you are paying out salaries, you might be, as a trust, paying money straight to the beneficiaries, but if you're paying money to, say, a staff member, you decide you're going to take on staff and you're paying some staff, you need to make sure that your pay as you earn and UIF are in order. Because if they're not, they're going to just unravel the whole thing and say that you're not complying and it's your alter ego. And then this is a real clincher that makes a massive difference to your trust is, does your trust deed allow for amendments to your deed? Because if your trust deed doesn't allow for amendments, you can't keep pace with how things change. Because the law changes all the time, and if your trust is stuck where none of the clauses can be amended, you're stuck. But if you're in a situation where you're saying, oh, sheesh, of the 8 questions Neil just asked me, I fail on 3 of them, or 4 of them, or all of them. What am I going to do? If you do it, if your trust does allow for amendments, then what you can actually do is you can substitute your whole trust. You can actually delete, you can effectively delete every single clause of the trust and replace it with a new trust deed, and just keep the trustees and the beneficiaries the same. So you can actually fix what is broken. So it's not as though you might say to me, Neil, I've got a family trust, I made a mistake. All my wealth's in there, I've got millions there, I'm not going to be transferred out. We can actually fix the trust. And when I say we, it's us and our people. I've got a company that we use, that we work very closely with, that we simply refer you across to the right person. And Willie, he's my trust guy. Willie will, he understands trust properly, he understands property. He's a property investor himself, and he practices law. So he knows the legal side, and he can help you with that. So the list goes on, but in summary, I just want to say that your trust can fail for the way it's managed and the way it is set up originally. And if your trust fails, you haven't escaped the death penalty. So I hope this video has been informative. If you've got any questions, give me a call.